The world is woven with stories. Some are tales of comfort, of heroism, of light. But others cling to the shadows, whispered in hushed tones when the night grows too deep, and the familiar rustle of leaves outside your window sounds wrong. Tonight, we journey to the humid, verdant coasts of the Pacific, to Colombia and Ecuador, where the mangroves clutch the land with gnarled fingers and the jungle breathes a life all its own. Here, an ancient fear still walks, a shapeshifter, a seductress of the lost. They call her La Tunda. Raphael was a son of the coast, the salty spray and the cry of gulls woven into his very being. Raised by his abuela Dominga, his childhood nights were filled with the crackle of the cooking fire and the murmur of the ocean, and her stories. La Tunda, Abuela Dominga's voice would be low, her eyes reflecting the flames. She is a trickster, a master of disguise. She waits, always waits, for the foolish, the arrogant, those who think the jungle has no teeth. Raphael, young and strong, his hands calloused from fishing lines, would often just smile. Superstitions, old wives' tales to keep children from wandering. The jungle was his backyard, the ocean his larder. What was there to fear? Then came a night bathed in the silver of a full moon. It hung like a bloated eye over the village, its light so bright it cast sharp, dancing shadows. Raphael felt it then, an itch under his skin, a strange, insistent pull towards the dense curtain of jungle that bordered their small cluster of homes. It wasn't a thought, not quite. More like a melody heard from a great distance, a scent of some unknown, intoxicating flower carried on the humid breeze. Abuela Dominga's warnings. They were just echoes now, lost in the thrumming urgency that filled him. He took his small, sharp knife, the one he used for gutting fish, and slipped into the darkness. The air grew heavy, clinging to him like damp cloth. Deeper he walked. The familiar paths dissolved. Roots, like the grasping claws of some buried beast, snagged at his ankles. Thorny vines, unseen in the gloom, tore at his skin, leaving thin, stinging trails of blood. The whispers started then, faint, sibilant, like dry leaves skittering across a parched throat. He'd whirl around, knife ready, heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. But there was nothing. Only the oppressive green walls of the jungle, the shimmering moonlight painting grotesque faces in the gnarled bark of ancient trees. Or so he thought. An unseen force seemed to clear his path, drawing him on. Hours bled into each other. Then, the oppressive canopy broke. A clearing, bathed in that same eerie moonlight. And she was there. Her back was to him. Long black hair, like polished jet, cascaded down, swaying gently, though no breeze stirred the heavy air. The moonlight caressed her form, making her skin glow with an ethereal luminescence. Who are you?" Raphael's voice was a dry croak. She turned, slowly. Her face was beautiful, achingly familiar, yet utterly alien. Her eyes, dark pools that seemed to swallow the moonlight, fixed on him. Her smile. It was an invitation and a threat, all at once. "I am the Tunda," she whispered, and her voice was the melody he'd heard, the scent of the unknown flower, a silken caress that sent shivers down his spine. "And you, Raphael, you have wandered too far." Before he could draw breath, before his mind could scream danger, her form twisted. It was not a human movement, Bones seemed to crack and re-knit, limbs elongating, her back hunching with a sickening, wet sound. Her hair, once smooth, now writhed like a nest of black snakes. Raphael stumbled back, a strangled cry tearing from his throat. His hand fumbled for the knife, but his fingers were numb, his limbs heavy as stone. The Tunda struck, not with claws or teeth, but with a dismissive flick of her wrist. And Raphael's world dissolved into a blinding, spinning vortex of green and black. When awareness returned, it was in pieces. The rough thatch of his own roof above him, the familiar scent of wood smoke and salt. He was in his cot, in his village. Sunlight, dull and gray, filtered through the cracks in the wall. It had been a dream, a nightmare, hadn't it? But a strange weightlessness pervaded his limbs. A soft, almost inaudible humming seemed to resonate deep within his skull. And in the corner of his eye, a shadow danced, always just out of direct sight, moving when he moved, breathing when he breathed. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Something dark had followed him home, and perhaps it never left. What dark force had ensnared Raphael? What ancient hunger now clung to his very essence? To understand the shadow that fell upon him and countless others, we must journey into the humid, pulsating heart of the Pacific coastal regions of Colombia and Ecuador, into a world where the mangrove swamps exhale secrets with the tide, and the jungle guards its mysteries with a jealous ferocity. This is the domain of La Tunda, a name whispered with a mixture of dread and reluctant respect. She is a shapeshifter, a seductress of the lost, a kidnapper of the unwary and the disobedient. But her story is not a simple one. It is a tapestry woven from threads of history, folklore, and the enduring power of the wild. They say her legend begins not in the realm of myth, but in the brutal, unforgiving reality of the Spanish colonial era in the 1500s. African women, enslaved and defiant, would escape the plantations, fleeing into the impenetrable embrace of the jungle. These rebellious escaped slave women organized resistance, carving out free communities in the wilderness. To the colonial authorities and the church that served them, these brave souls were a threat, an embodiment of defiance. And so, they were demonized. Stories were spun, painting them as monstrous, as allies of dark forces, to deter others from seeking freedom. The cruelty of that time echoes in La Tunda's very form. Recaptured escapees often faced horrific punishments, limbs amputated, bodies broken. And so, one of La Tunda's most chilling and iconic features is her leg. One leg, they say, is not of flesh and blood. It is twisted, deformed, sometimes resembling a gnarled tree root, or, more bizarrely, a molinillo, the simple wooden whisk used in kitchens. A grotesque, haunting symbol of disfigurement, yes, but perhaps also of a terrible, twisted resilience, a constant reminder of the price of freedom and the scars of oppression. Other tales, whispered around dying embers, speak of a more infernal lineage. They say La Tunda is the daughter of an African princess, stolen from her homeland and brought to the Americas on the death ships of the slave trade. This princess, a leader of rebellion, was seduced by the devil himself, disguised in alluring form. Their unholy union bore monstrous offspring, cursed with ugliness and an insatiable, unnatural appetite. La Tunda, chief among them. And her methods, they are as insidious as her origins. She rarely appears as a monster, not at first. She comes to you in a guise you trust, a form you long for, a lost mother, a deceased lover, a comforting figure from your past. Her voice, a sweet melody promising solace. Her eyes, full of deceptive warmth. But always there is the flaw, the detail that betrays her. Look closely at her legs, the elders warn. Always one foot, the molinillo leg, dragging slightly, or hidden beneath long skirts, a telltale sign for those with the wisdom to see. If the disguise holds, if the victim is lured deep enough into her domain, her true power reveals itself not in violence, but in a grotesque parody of care. She will offer food, plump river shrimp, or sweet tender crabs, cooked to perfection. But the villagers, their voices dropping to a fearful hush, will tell you how this meal is prepared. Cooked, they say, in the flesh of her own buttocks. This unholy sustenance induces a state known as entundamiento, a trance. The victim becomes docile, their will eroded, their memories of home and family dissolving like mist. They become loyal to La Tunda, content in their strange captivity, unwilling or unable to return to the world they once knew. For some, particularly men, the lure leads to an even darker fate. Whispers speak of her draining their life force, their very blood, in a macabre imitation of intimacy, leaving them husks or devouring them like a jungle cat. So, is she a demon? A figment of colonial propaganda designed to instill fear and prevent escape? Or is she something more complex? A twisted symbol of liberation, luring people away from the horrors of slavery into a different kind of existence, albeit a terrifying one. A protector of the wild, embodying the raw, untamed spirit of the jungle itself? The truth, like the jungle paths, is a labyrinth. To rescue an entundado, a victim under her spell, entire communities must rally. Rituals are performed, a potent blend of Afro-Colombian traditions and Catholic rites. Drums must thunder, gunpowder must explode, prayers must be chanted with fervent faith, holy water sprinkled to break the dark enchantment. Godparents, priests, family, all must venture into her territory to confront the spirit, to reclaim the lost soul. La Tunda is more than a monster. She is a living legend, a cultural memory etched into the very landscape of the Pacific coast, a haunting reminder of a brutal past and a testament to the enduring power of stories to shape belief, to instill fear, and perhaps to offer a strange, unsettling form of warning. Consider the story of a woman, her name lost to the currents of time, but her face, when she recounted her tale years later, was a roadmap of a life lived near the edge of such shadows. Her eyes, black as the deepest night, held a flicker of an old fear. Her features, though weathered, still conveyed the force of the memory. "When I was a girl," she would begin, her voice a low rumble, "I was difficult. I listened to no one. If my father or mother gave an order, I'd find a way to ignore it, to defy it." Her father, a man of calloused hands and short temper, would often warn her, his voice tight with a frustration she was too young, too headstrong, to comprehend. "If you keep on like this," he'd say, his words more a desperate plea than a threat, "La Tunda, she will come for you." These words, meant to cow her into obedience, instead became a grim prelude. It was late afternoon, the woman continued, her gaze distant, fixed on a point beyond the visible. The sun was bleeding orange through the canopy. My father, he told me, go to the store, buy 20 centavos of coffee. And I, in my usual way, refused. "I'm not going," I snapped back. "I don't even like coffee." Her father, pushed to his limit, lunged to grab her, to administer the punishment she so clearly invited. But she was quick, darting away, his angry shouts echoing behind her. "A house hen doesn't run far," he yelled, his open hand a promise of pain. "Just you wait till you get back." She ran, adrenaline singing in her veins, until his voice faded, until the familiar village sounds were replaced by the deepening hush of the approaching jungle. Panting, she paused to rest, and then a voice, soft, gentle. "There you are, child." It was her mother, or it looked like her mother, standing there, a small, sad smile on her lips. "Your father," the figure cooed, her voice like balm on a wound. "He was too harsh. It was for nothing, just because he felt like it. Don't you worry. I'm on your side. Come with me, mija. Let's go to the finca, gather some sweet zapotes." The child, still smarting from the confrontation, hungry for comfort, saw only her mother's kindness. She didn't notice the slight hesitation before the figure spoke, or the way her eyes didn't quite crinkle at the corners when she smiled. She didn't register the faint, loamy scent that clung to her, a smell not of their home, but of deep, damp earth. Without a second thought, she took the offered hand. "We walked," the woman's voice trembled slightly now, "and walked, deeper into the mountain, the bush. The familiar path twisted, became strange. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of unknown blossoms and decay. And the woman beside me, her hand in mine, it was no longer my mother." The realization dawned, cold and horrifying. The figure's grip tightened, no longer gentle. The face, once maternal, now held a possessive, alien hunger. The child's fiery defiance, the stubborn will that had met her parents' anger head-on, simply evaporated. A chilling emptiness filled her. She was clay in the creature's grasp. Back in the village, as twilight bled into true night, panic began to bloom. She hadn't returned, hadn't come for her small piece of evening plantain. Her parents, their earlier anger forgotten, replaced by a gnawing dread, knew. Their worst fears were taking shape in the encroaching darkness. No time was lost. Friends, godparents, the dogs, a search party formed. Machetes, freshly sharpened, gleamed in the torchlight. The deep throb of the bombo drum, the sharp crack of the kununo, rosaries clutched in trembling hands, gourds of holy water, weapons against an enemy not of this world. They plunged into the jungle, their voices calling her name, slicing through the oppressive silence. For 2 agonizing hours, nothing, only the mocking echo of their calls, the oppressive weight of the unseen. Then, a sound, footsteps, heavy, dragging, somewhere in the dense undergrowth, and the dogs. They erupted, a frenzied, terrified barking, a sound none had ever heard from them before, as if the very devils of hell were walking nearby, their foul breath hot on their fur. And through a gap in the foliage, the search party saw her. La Tunda, and with her, the small, ghost-like figure of the child. The air exploded. The drums thundered, not in festival, but in spiritual warfare. The women's voices, strong and unwavering, soared in the sacred alabos, ancient hymns of power and protection, words like shields against the encroaching evil. They say the creature, the Tunda, could not bear it. The unified faith, the sacred sounds, the righteous fury of the community. She shrieked, a sound of pure, frustrated malice, and fled, melting back into the deepest shadows, cursing their names. They found the girl huddled in the thorns, scratched and terrified, but alive, whole. "She wanted to take me," the old woman would conclude, her voice barely a whisper, to make me one of them. A vision, doomed to wander the mangroves forever, searching for the parents I would never find, begging for a forgiveness I could never truly receive. Because the world of the visions, it is not the world of the living. She would look at the children gathered around her then, her dark eyes intense, compelling. What happened to me? It was because of my disrespect, my rudeness to my parents. You must not disobey. Because La Tunda, she is always watching, always listening, and she hunts for the disobedient, the rude children, those who do not honor their elders. 2 stories, 2 encounters, generations apart, yet bound by the same chilling presence, the same palpable dread. La Tunda. Is she a demonized memory of colonial resistance, her monstrous form a shield against a history too terrible to face directly? Is she a supernatural entity born of the wild, untamed jungle, a primal spirit that demands respect, or takes what it desires? Or is she something else entirely, something that feeds on the cracks in our obedience, on the loneliness that drives us to seek comfort in unfamiliar faces, on those fateful moments when we stray, ever so slightly, from the known path? The shrimp still grow plump in the coastal rivers. The mangroves still stand, their roots like tangled skeins of ancient secrets. And in the quiet villages, when the night is deep and the jungle seems to press in, its breath hot and humid against the thin walls of the houses, mothers still whisper warnings to their children, warnings of La Tunda. What truly became of Raphael? Did he sever the Tunda's hold, or did he merely appease something ancient that can never be truly vanquished, only changed? Did the shadow that clung to him ever fully recede? Or did a piece of the jungle, a whisper of the Tunda, remain embedded in his soul? And how many others, down through the years, lured by a familiar face, a gentle voice, the promise of an end to sorrow, have walked into those verdant depths, never to return, their wills slowly, inexorably dissolving like salt in the ocean, their memories of home becoming faint, distorted echoes in a world ruled by a grotesque, possessive love. Perhaps the true horror of La Tunda lies not only in her shifting form or her nightmarish methods. Perhaps it's in the chilling ease with which she slips into the familiar, the terrifying way she turns love into allure, and the sanctuary of home into a distant, unattainable dream. She remains a shadow in the periphery of our understanding, a whisper on the humid night wind, a disquieting reminder that some legends are not just stories. They are echoes of a darkness that waits patiently, hungrily, just beyond the fragile circle of the firelight. What are your thoughts on La Tunda? Is she a figment of rich folklore, a historical allegory, or a chilling entity that still walks the hidden places of the world? Share your theories and your own local legends in the comments below. And if you crave more journeys into the unsettling and the unknown, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. You wouldn't want to miss what comes crawling out of the shadows next.